Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. As always, it is Nick here, back to your daily crypto news and analysis. And today we are going to be talking about the vast majority of crypto and finance. And with that being said, I hope that you are all having a beautiful day or a beautiful night, wherever you guys are out there in the world. So, I am buckled up and I am ready for this wild week ahead. And you might be saying, well, Nick, are you just giving us clickbait? What's going on? No, I'm not giving you guys clickbait. There's a lot of major events coming up this week around the financial world that could very well spill into this market and cause volatility in either direction. Fear and Greed Index sitting at about roughly 57. Bitcoin trading around 62.6K, still holding above 62K. Remember, that's that key level from the past previous videos I just did, where I said like that's the key level that invalidates our local bottom being in on Bitcoin. We're going to address Bitcoin. We're going to talk about the structure. I'm also going to be addressing what we want to see going into this week and even later weeks as well. But regardless, most of the market is still in red today on the 24-hour span. There is still some green. And ultimately speaking, as we go to the top gainers and the losers in the top 500, guys, there's a lot of green across the board today. And that is because when we look at Bitcoin dominance, it did start to drop pretty heavily, but now it's starting to rebound. We're going to address that as well. We're going to talk about it. Everyone is on the edge of their seats waiting for alt season. And, you know, alt season is happening. It's going to happen. But it is building, right? It takes some time until we get to that alt season because that's like the last area of the bull run. Initially, there's still some things that have to happen. Like, for an example, Bitcoin needs to go to new all-time highs. We already got that check, but Bitcoin is still ranging here on the major move to the upside, which will put in a new all-time high that we need to target in the next cycle if we are looking at that. But also Ethereum, right? We still need to have Ethereum go parabolic. And then after Ethereum, we see altcoins go crazy. The big thing that I'm focused on right now is just the major events. The Kabaisi letter put out a great post regarding this and really kind of just sums up what we're focused on this week. This week is going to be absolutely wild. The Fed will react for the first time to rising PCE, PPI, and CPI inflation data. Now, a lot of that inflation data we know is manipulated. I'm not even going to go in depth on it. We know that it is falsified data, but regardless, we are going to get a reaction. This includes Fed Chair Powell's Q&A after the first 2-month increase in inflation since September of 2023. Meanwhile, over 20% of the S&P 500 will be reporting earnings, including Apple. All before we get the April jobs report on Friday and geopolitical tensions continue. Just about every major headwind is converging this week. What are your predictions? Buckle up. Now, one thing that I will focus on here is typically the weekly candle closes have been going like this. We pump into the weekly candle close and then we sell off. That's what that's what we're watching right now on Bitcoin. We pumped into the weekly close and now we're selling off. But remember that the bank collapse happened on Friday after the close. We didn't really see the after effects of that yet. Monday will be the big thing, aka today, tomorrow, however you want to spin it. That's when we see the confirmation of what's going to happen next. Some key things that I've been focused on: the DXY, the dollar, the US dollar index. Guys, this is at the major point in time where it is decision time. What is going to happen next? Well, one, RSI is now starting to cool off at the same exact time that it seems as though bearish momentum on the MACD is beginning. I wouldn't be surprised if this thing started to reject heavy from here and come back down to this bottom trend line or even just a demand zone, aka that demand zone is around like roughly 104 to like 105. That would still be a significant enough drop. This is going to range here for a little bit of time until we see something like, a break to the upside or a break to the downside where one of these demand zones will be targeted. And we're watching this closely. We just targeted that upper demand zone slightly, but nothing too significant. Not like we saw back here in October, right? But regardless, we are watching the DXY closely this week because guess what? It is at a point in time where it is ready to make a major decision. On the weekly, now the trend line is going to look a little bit different, but it's still there, right? We're starting to see that momentum cooling off in terms of bullish momentum. And also the RSI is at a level of almost overbought. So we're still watching to see a reaction on this chart. Until we see a major reaction, which should happen this week, everything's still just kind of ranging. Also the 10-year bonds, right? We talked about the treasuries. This is something that you should definitely focus on because at this current moment in time, very similar to the dollar, it's hitting this upper range. This level is decision time. And as you guys do see down here, RSI, overbought. Also, MACD, guess what? Momentum is cooling off. It's starting to flip. I wouldn't be surprised if we had a sell-off back down into this trend line and we ranged until, again, a much larger decision is made where we either break to the upside of roughly 5% and then sell off, or we just lose this trend completely and we break down to the downside of roughly like 3.7%. 8% almost, and then also 4.5%. Now remember, as we do look at the S&P 500 over here, right, we are getting a major earnings report today, tomorrow, Monday, right? When we look at that, okay, this is what the S&P 500 looks like currently, all right? This was the weekly candle close on Friday. And I don't actually, as we really look at this, one thing that I want to focus on is actually futures. And I have it open over here 1 second. So here you guys have the futures. Now I did include this in a video recently. I believe it was on Saturday. This is updated at 11:17 p.m. Again, I'm recording this at about roughly 11:28 p.m. EST. This is what the Dow, the S&P 500, and also the NASDAQ, and if you do follow the Russell, this is what they all look like. Again, still looking pretty good. They are still jumping a bit. And as we really look at it, right, it's a change of roughly over 100 points. Also, a change of roughly almost like 13.25 points. Nothing too crazy there for the S&P 500, and then also a change of 59 points for the NASDAQ. Again, nothing too significant, but it is still something to mention considering the fact that it looks as though futures are trading in a positive way. Now we do get the the earnings report Monday, Tuesday, and also I believe Wednesday. And then also Friday is the jobs report. These definitely do impact the market. This week is going to be very volatile. I wouldn't be surprised if we get heavy swings to the upside and also even the downside. But after this week, we should have a clear view of what's going to happen next around this market. The S&P 500, this was the best week in 6 months, guys. That's something to note when we are looking at what's going to be happening next around the S&P 500. In my opinion, as we really look at what's going on, I do believe that we rally into the end of 2024. In between now and the end of this year, we will see major moves to the upside and the downside. There will still be major pullbacks. Don't get scared and don't panic if we do see major sell-offs. The only thing that we need to focus on is a break and loss of structure. Now, I put out a post regarding this and I said, I feel like everyone at this point is waiting for higher, but they are afraid that higher isn't coming. This cycle has been extremely weird. We haven't hit euphoric levels on 90% of the market outside of meme coins. You have institutions openly talking about their plans in crypto and tokenization, yet sentiment is still trash. You have everyone complaining about their specific altcoin not doing anything while all these other altcoins are pumping, but I failed to see any substance outside of a select few that move. The simple view right now is simply zooming out and looking at the total and total 3 charts. We have been chopping and ranging in what seems like an accumulation zone between 60 to 70K. During this time, everyone is on the fence with what happens next. We either break 74K and we go to $80,000 plus next, or we still need to focus on that 62K level because if lost, it would invalidate our local bottom being in. These are mainly the only 2 levels to really watch on Bitcoin. Right now, I am simply doing nothing until a decision on the charts is made. Remain calm and patient. Now, like I've said here, right? That key level is 62K to watch on the downside. Right now, Bitcoin is trading at about roughly 62.6K. And it did hit the 62.5K level, which I will address in this video as well. Now, the chart that I have been following the most as of recent, and I'm sure that you guys are probably all aware of this, is the Global Liquidity Index. This is much more important than most out there. And as we look at it, right, go back to the end of 2022. Liquidity was at the worst point in time on this chart since going all the way back to 2000. All right. We knew that this was going to pump. And that's when 2023 started to really kind of heat up. This is where we are at currently on this chart. In my opinion, this is going to go significantly higher. This will also help the markets. This will support the markets. What the Fed does next could very well provide a spring on this to the upside. Watch the Global Liquidity Index. This market runs on liquidity. This market follows the liquidity index, and it always has. Go back to 2020 into 2021. It's very clear that this market runs on liquidity. It's not just a 4-year cycle. Oh, it runs on the 4-year cycle. Guys, the 4-year cycle, the only reason why we follow it is because it has followed the liquidity cycle itself. Outside of that, there's really nothing tied to the 4-year cycle. The only reason why we're front running the halving and all this stuff is because of liquidity improving after liquidity was completely demolished back in 2022. Now, as we look at Bitcoin, right, this is the overall view, in my opinion, on Bitcoin. Go back to the beginning of 2021. So during this time, Bitcoin was already significantly above the 2017-2018 all-time high. Now, we're not this significant above, the 2020, or sorry, let me put that one there as well. We're not that significantly above 2021's all-time high. It's just like a slight little bit. And right now, we're actually below the 2021 all-time high. But I'm talking about the move to the upside. You could either argue that we're at this point in time in December of 2020, or we're around this time in January of 2021. Both scenarios could definitely play into what we are looking at on Bitcoin, which is the fact that we're just ranging sideways. You have this big spike to the upside. This is the all-time high from 2017, 2018. We tapped it, sold off. Here we have, let's throw this on the chart just to kind of show you guys the all-time high from 2021. Again, we have the tap of the 2021 all-time high, sell off, right, in just one daily candle, major sell off. And then we continue to range to the upside. Now, it was a slight move to the upside, nothing too crazy, very similar to like these candle wicks here in November and even December of 2020. And then we continue to range sideways under resistance until we fully broke through. Now, there was a big impulse here to the upside, and then we ranged sideways, and then we had another impulse. You could also look at where we are at right now, very similar to January all the way into roughly February, where we're just going sideways. And the reason why I like to look at this more so than down here is because look at the structure. We have a spike here, major sell-off in one daily candle, move to the upside, nothing too crazy, nothing very volatile or anything like that. Again, RSI, majorly overbought. Again, RSI over here, majorly overbought. Then we had a sell-off. We had a nice move to the upside, a nice little bounce. Nothing too crazy. Again, here's the bounce. Again, sell-off, bounce. Then we continued to range down to the downside, kind of started to break to the upside, nothing too crazy. But during this time, it was just ranging, right? This is accumulation. This is essentially an accumulation before a much larger move to the upside like we did get into February. Watching Bitcoin currently, we are waiting for a move to the upside. Specifically, what we are watching for is a new higher high here. We want to break 67K. $67,000 is the big area. You could argue that, yes, we need to clear the all-time high from 2021 yet again. Sure, we do. But in fact, we actually have to clear $74,000 roughly. So the first level that I'm watching for here is, so far we're doing this, just ranging to the downside. We're still going to the downside here. We're watching for a range to be formed here, aka our local bottom before we break to the upside above 67K. And during this time, we could very well pump to the upside a little bit more. Then we come back down range, and then we get the big break to the upside. And this could very well be a large break before we have another range form, and then we go. This would be the best case scenario. But what happens if we lose the local bottom that is essentially forming on this chart? Well, if we lose this, I've said it multiple times, this is the focus down here at about roughly 50 to 54K. Guys, this would be a very significant sell-off, but this would also be a liquidation hunt. This would be hunting liquidation, improving liquidity in the overall market. And during this time, well, we're expecting a big move to the upside. And how will that look? Well, we would range down here before the big break. Again, we would probably range around 62K before we break above it, because 62K will essentially become resistance. And then we would try to break 67K. Again, we would back test that 62K, hold it as support this time around, and pretty much repeat what I have on the chart going forward. This is a scenario that could very well happen, and we cannot let ourselves get shaken out on this major move to the downside if the big word there is if we get that. But I'm more so expecting something like this back in 2021, where we just kind of ranged to the downside and it almost looked like we were just going to sell off. But this technically is it's just an accumulation range. This is what I'm watching for us to actually do over here. Now, yeah, we could still come back down to like the 61K level and hold that and maintain it. We have, but a healthier structure would be us maintaining a higher low here so that we can continue to the upside and break into a higher high, which would be very, very bullish for Bitcoin. Outside of that, Bitcoin dominance, right? Everyone's focused on their altcoins. Guys, Bitcoin dominance seems to be finding a nice little floor here, at least on the daily. We're watching this to regain strength above 55.23% because that would be a break back above resistance. And during that time, this is how this would look. We would have a tap of that upper trend line at around roughly like 56%, come back down, range before a much larger expansion to the upside. And during this time, it should take us to our official top on Bitcoin dominance around 58 to 60%. We'd probably range up here and then get the sell-off. But regardless, any scenario on Bitcoin dominance, like the big thing to focus on with dominance is the fact that this will top out and this will have a sell-off. During that time, focus on altcoins. Right now, I'm not dead set on our RSI, on our MACD being very bullish right now. But remember, this is a lagging factor, just like it was back here in February before we had a nice move to the upside. Bullish momentum started to improve, but then we sold off. The big thing that I'm looking at is just a move to the upside of this resistance zone and what happens from there. Price action is more important right now on Bitcoin outside of just Bitcoin dominance, because we still need Bitcoin to go much higher to support altcoins also going much higher. But right now, I'm not really focused on this chart. But if we're looking at Bitcoin, if we're going to get a big move to the upside, well, this will start to improve drastically in terms of Bitcoin dominance, and it would actually take us up to this demand zone up here. It would be welcomed in on this next move on Bitcoin. And then what would happen is this would sell off while Bitcoin continues to go higher, which would ultimately bring altcoins much, much higher in the market, aka alt season beginning and officially starting. So with that being said, definitely prepare for this week. It's going to be a volatile one, in my opinion. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, though. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you guys did enjoy the video, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys more follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.